Breaking news right now from the Justice Department. The Attorney General is ordering a review into a story we've been covering all week about possible Obama administration interference in drug investigations involving the Hezbollah terror group. A Politico article asserts the interference was intended to smooth the way for President Obama's legacy Iran nuclear deal. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts has the breaking details on that story tonight and the day with President Trump. Good evening, John.
Good evening to you. Attorney General Jeff Sessions tells Fox News that he is looking into allegations the Obama administration derailed a DEA operation that was investigating the smuggling of cocaine into the United States by Hezbollah. Sessions has ordered a review of Project Cassandra, which was investigating and prosecuting Hezbollah personnel. As you mentioned, the allegations that the Obama administration interfered in Project Cassandra were first raised in a Politico magazine article. In a statement to Fox News talking about the opening of this review, the Attorney General said, quote, "While I am hopeful there were no barriers constructed by the last administration to allowing DEA agents to fully bring all appropriate cases under Project Cassandra, this is a significant issue for the protection of Americans." DOJ sources say that review could lead to the reopening of prosecutions of Hezbollah officials and could open another Inspector General's investigation of DOJ personnel. Fox News has also learned that President Trump is expected to approve the sale of very powerful anti-tank missiles to the Ukrainian government. This would mark a major escalation in U.S. support for Ukrainian forces as they battle Russian-aligned fighters in eastern Ukraine. That sale, by the way, would require congressional approval before the State Department goes ahead. President Trump left the White House this morning bound for his Christmas vacation in Mar-a-Lago, Florida, with the wind in his sails after signing his vaunted tax reform bill. President Trump gave a fist bump when he stepped off Air Force One in West Palm Beach today, the signature issue of his election campaign now codified into law.
All of this, everything in here, is really tremendous things for businesses, for people, for the middle class, for workers. And I consider this very much a bill for the middle class and a bill for jobs.
Democrats continue to slam the plan as terrible for the country.
Republicans took a victory lap because they successfully sold America's children's future by handing tax breaks to corporate America and the wealthiest.
But today, two more major corporations announcing tax reform-related benefits for workers. Sinclair and PNC joining Boeing, AT&T, Comcast, Wells Fargo, and Fifth Third Bank, handing out Christmas bonuses to some 55,000 employees. New England Patriots owner Bob Kraft telephoned the president yesterday to say he supports the bill, that it will drive economic growth, raise wages, and create jobs.
He's going to buy a big plant in the great state of North Carolina, and he's going to build a tremendous paper mill there, or paper products plant.
President Trump invoked the name of Ronald Reagan, saying his tax cut is bigger than Reagan's. Though measured as a percentage of GDP, it's not even close. And with the tax bill, President Trump claimed to have signed more legislation in his first year than even the historic frontrunner Harry Truman.
We have, I believe it's 88. Which is number one in the history of our country. Second now is Harry Truman.
Tax reform behind him, the president will spend the week at Mar-a-Lago, looking ahead to his 2018 agenda, which includes rebuilding infrastructure, immigration reform, and welfare reform. President Trump wants to get bipartisan buy-in, so infrastructure will likely go first.
Infrastructure is by far the easiest. People want it, Republicans and Democrats. We're going to have tremendous Democrat support on infrastructure, as you know.
Immigration reform and welfare reform will be a much harder sell. And in a combative election year, Democrats are expected to give the president little or none of what he'll ask for. The 2018 elections were front and center the same day President Trump celebrated the passage of tax reform. The president huddling with Chief of Staff John Kelly, Kellyanne Conway, Communications Director Hope Hicks, Political Director Bill Stepien, former campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, and the Trump campaign Digital Director Brad Parscale. Sources tell Fox News the meeting grew heated when Lewandowski rang the alarm that the president was not being well served by the current political operation at the White House run by Stepien, and that changes need to be made. A day earlier, former Chief of Staff Reince Priebus told the president the same thing. Lewandowski also told the president that the Republican National Committee needed to do better. A GOP operative tells Fox News there needs to be better coordination on communications, that when the White House is in a political knife fight, it needs air cover from the RNC. One GOP source went so far as to tell Fox News the RNC is a disaster, that the president needs to dump that place and start over. Midterm elections in a president's first term are historically difficult, though Republicans fear there could be a bloodbath in November unless something is done to change the strategy. One other piece of business here, Corey Lewandowski and Steve Bannon, the president's former chief strategist, are expected to appear before the House Select Committee on Intelligence to talk about the Russia investigation early next year. Brett?
A lot going on. John Roberts live on the North Lawn. John, thanks.
ISIS is on the run. Historic tax cuts have just been passed through Congress and will be on the president's desk soon. We're very excited about all of the things that have happened this year. The economy is booming. The stock market has seen all-time highs.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, ticking off some of the president's first-year accomplishments. Also helped, of course, reshape the judiciary for years to come and taken and axed regulations as promised. Yet his approval numbers are underwater, badly. Latest Gallup numbers, 35 approved, 59 disapproved. That is before this tax cut press conference that you're watching video of right now. So how do you square that circle? Bernie Goldberg, renowned geometry expert and Fox News contributor, joins us now. So, Mr. Expert, how? Why?
Well, Mr. Expert, huh? Let me state my bias right up front. I'm not a fan of this president for what I think are a lot of good reasons. But too many reporters are openly hostile to him, openly hostile. And I'm not a fan of that either. Since he's become president, the economy has taken off, right? Unemployment is down. Everything else is up. The stock market is up. Consumer confidence is up. The GDP is up. He ought to be getting better press than he's getting. Now, some of that is on Donald Trump. Let's just call it his behavior, things that Sarah Sanders won't tell you about, understandably. Some of it's on Donald Trump. But the press doesn't have clean hands here either. Too many reporters, and I'm not breaking any news here, Leland, too many reporters have a liberal bias, and too many reporters just detest the president.
Okay, Bernie,
if you connect the dots.
Can't both things be true, though? Can't it be that people may not like his behavior and at the same time reporters spend too much time on it? Are we giving the American people enough credit here to be able to make their own decisions rather than just blame it on the fake news?
I think that's a very good point. You don't have to admire this president. You don't have to even like this president to acknowledge the obvious. And the obvious is that too many reporters, they want him out of office. They hate him, and the sooner he goes, the better. So they're more willing to accept anonymous information that later proves to be untrue. They relinquish their role as skeptics and become gullible patsies. And the mistakes are all going in one direction, the anti-Trump direction. If they're honest mistakes, they ought to go in both directions. That's a law of averages.
If we assume that your point is true, that there are reporters who are out there who are biased against the president, at the same time, we've got facts. We have the Dow at a record high. There was just a breaking story on the AP that housing numbers hit a new high in November. And you've got all of these great things happening. It was James Carville who said, it's the economy, stupid. Yet the president's approval's numbers are really low. And we'll also assume for the moment the American people are smart enough to see what you just talked about the biases of the media. Where is the disconnect?
The disconnect is simple. They don't like him. I mean, I could try to make this more highfalutin than that, but if it were President Hillary Clinton...
But I guess what you're saying, are you saying that the coverage, the bad coverage that you're talking about is what's driving these poll numbers despite the economy being in a good shape?
I think there are two things. Yes, that's part of it. The other part of it is Donald Trump. I mean, he tweets too much. He's too vindictive. He's too much of a narcissist. And except for his loyal base that still loves him, he's the president of his base, because 35% isn't going to get him where he wants to go. It's not going to get him. You know, you can't succeed as a president with only your base. So part of it is him, but part of it is a press that just plain doesn't like him.
Let me offer you one other hypothesis, and this isn't mine. It was offered by a good friend of mine, Josh Kraushaar, over at the National Journal. He writes, the new reality. Americans are voting their values, not their pocketbooks. And that's alarming news for Republicans looking to hold their increasingly tenuous congressional majorities. It's also a danger signal for Trump if he is thinking about running for re-election in 2020. Trump's conduct in office is the defining issue of the country.
I think that's a good point. I think he's right. Now, I don't know that they're abandoning the economics, but if they are, in fact, voting their values, that does not portend well for Donald Trump, because 35% approve of him. But let me make one final point here. I don't know why Donald Trump spends as much time and energy as he does beating up on the media. They're doing a pretty good job of that themselves. They've made a lot of mistakes. And if, God forbid, you criticize the media, then you're a Trump toady, you're a Trump apologist, you're out to put a stake through the heart of the First Amendment, you hate democracy. You know, there are some hyper-partisans who hate the media, and I don't think they should be taken seriously. But some people are reasonable. Look, I don't like Donald Trump, and I think he's getting a raw deal from the press.
Well, it would appear as though maybe he hasn't listened to your segment yet, because he was tweeting this morning about the media, saying, sadly, the fake mainstream media will never talk about our accomplishments in their end-of-year reviews. We are compiling a long, beautiful list, which brings up an interesting question. He says, we're compiling that long, beautiful list. Perhaps he's going to try to take, as he so often does, his message directly to, as you point out, his very loyal supporters. Bernie,
that's not enough.
It's not enough?
That's not enough.
All right. Well, that is an important point. Combine that with Josh's. The good news is you're down there, it looks like in sunny Florida, where the weather's pretty good for the holidays.
Yeah, it's in mid-70s, another day in paradise, as they say, until hurricane season.
It sounds terrible. Well, at least that's something we can all agree on, although we all used to say it was only the weather people who were wrong on the news. All right, Bernie, we'll talk to you soon.